Hi, I'm Asa Kalama. I'm a Walt Disney Imagineer. We're the people who design and build all the cool theme park attractions, like the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror here at Disney's California Adventure. It's a thrill ride that rockets you 13 stories straight up and then straight down into a terrifying plunge into darkness. Couldn't have timed that any better. But I know what you're thinking. Twilight Zone Tower of Terror? Also, isn't this supposed to be about science? Well, it is. And as an Imagineer, I'm happy to tell you that if you think science is only done in labs, like this, or hard to figure out, like this, what the science we're about to explore is a lot more fun than that. Intense cheese, pushing us back. It involves imagination, which you already have, and the scientific principles that are zipping around us 24/7.
This is science!
As Imagineers, we use science to tell stories, to take you to exciting places. And when you start thinking like an Imagineer, you're gonna find out that science is really a lot more like this. And this, ready for blast off. And this. So buckle up and join me for a wild ride into the world of imagination, inspiration, and science as we dream it, do it. The science of Imagineering. Trust me, this is science you'll fall for! Hello, everyone. Welcome to my workspace at Walt Disney Imagineering, the place where imagination meets engineering. See, everything we do here begins with imagination, an idea or a notion for something that might be a whole lot of fun. Then we use the science to engineer and build bigger, better, and more exciting attractions. And speaking of that, this here is a little something I've been working on to add to the guest experience at Disneyland's Red Rocket Pizza Port in Tomorrowland. Pizza! See, when I was a kid, I remember seeing pizza guys do stuff like this. I could watch those guys for hours. Well, I had a lot of free time as a kid. Anyhow, I thought our guests might enjoy that kind of fun live experience. And since we are talking about a pizza place in Tomorrowland, we should do it with a futuristic dough-tossing device like this. But as they say, what goes up must come down. Eventually. And that's all because of our good old friend, gravity. What exactly is gravity? Gravity is the force that pulls all objects with mass towards each other. The greater the mass, the greater the gravity, and the more it pulls on other objects. Distance also affects gravity. The greater the distance between objects, the less the pull. In space, the planets orbit our massive sun because of the sun's gravity. The Earth's gravity keeps the moon, satellites, the space shuttle, and anything else you might find up there in orbit around the Earth. Everything with mass, no matter how big or small, has gravity. Gravity is also what gives you weight. So, living in a different gravitational field would give us all a different weight. No way. Let's say you weigh 100 pounds here on Earth. The moon has a much smaller mass than Earth, and that means much less gravity. On the moon, you'd only weigh 16 pounds. You'd be able to jump, hand-launch pizza dough much higher. On the flip side, Jupiter has a mass much greater than Earth's. If you could stand on the surface of Jupiter's swirling clouds, you'd now weigh 265 pounds. It would feel like you were wearing a very heavy lead suit, and your pizza dough wouldn't go very high at all. On the sun, forget it. You'd weigh 2,800 pounds, almost as much as a small car, and you'd look like bacon. I love the smell of science in the morning. Here on Earth, the gravity is certainly strong enough to keep us, the oceans, the trees, everything from floating away. But you gotta wonder, if Earth's gravity is so strong, why aren't we aware of it? Well, we are. It's just that we're all very used to it. We've been experiencing the same gravity since the day we were born. But trust me, it's there. And I say but specifically, so you'll now pay very close attention to your butt. Do you feel that force down there right now? No, not that force. Right now, Earth's gravity is pulling you and me straight down to the center of the Earth at a force of 1g. That's the constant pull of Earth's gravity. What you're feeling is the chair that's keeping you from being pulled to the center of the Earth, which is good, because it's like hot, gooey cheese with a solid center down there. The chair is pushing back up on your butt with an equal force of 1g. And that balance, whether you're sitting in a chair or standing with your feet on the ground, or lying in your bed with the mattress beneath you, that balance is what we're all so used to feeling. But we're not always so perfectly balanced. And that's when things start feeling a little strange. Think about an elevator, and make sure you bring along your favorite bathroom scale. Standing still, everything is balanced, like when you're sitting in your chair. So you feel normal weight. Let's say 100 pounds. When the elevator takes off, you're momentarily accelerating, which causes you to feel a force greater than 1g. So you feel heavier. During the ride up, the forces balance out, and you feel a normal weight again. When the elevator is stopping, you're decelerating for an instant, and you feel a force less than 1g. So you feel lighter and weigh less. When the elevator comes to a complete stop, everything is balanced again, back to normal weight. When you suddenly start adding even more and more force that either goes with or against the 1g pull of gravity, that change is what puts the thrill in thrill rides. On the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, we do some pretty funky things to mess with the 1g force of gravity. I'll show you what I mean a little later. Falling pizza dough does raise an interesting question about gravity. Are you with me? Imagine you had a 2-pound piece of pizza dough floating in midair and a 200-pound dough-tossing pizza guy. If you suddenly drop them both at the exact same instant, would they hit the ground at the same time? At first, we all want to say no, because we live on a planet that's loaded with air resistance. Air resistance is a frictional force that objects experience as they move through air or as air flows around them. And that slows different sized objects down differently because of friction. Friction is a physical force that opposes the relative motion of two objects in contact. But air resistance really distorts the truth about gravity. So let's turn it off and make gravity the only force acting on both the pizza guy and the dough. Surprise! When the force of gravity is the only force acting on objects, they will always accelerate at the same rate, regardless of mass, size, and shape. And fortunately, in this case, into a passing mattress truck that keeps my animation buddy from ending up a little squishy. Then, an elephant falls. When gravity is the only force acting on an object, we call that free fall. Free fall is unrestrained motion that is affected only by the force of gravity. That's the floating feeling you get on thrill rides, when you can no longer feel the track beneath you. By the way, in case you're wondering, anything you drop, pizza dough, let's say a tuba, in a state of free fall, anything you drop will fall in about 9.8 meters, or 32 feet per second per second. That means after 1 second, an object falls at 22 miles per hour. After 2 seconds, it falls at 44 miles per hour. 3 seconds, 66 miles per hour, about as fast as a car cruising down the freeway. Who knew? Gravity pulls everything down faster and faster. And as long as we're talking about gravity and free fall, here's a little something that's odd, but true. It involves the center of the Earth and how gravity is always trying to take us there. Let's imagine you were able to dig a tunnel straight through the center of the Earth, all the way to the other side, and then you jumped in. As gravity pulls you towards the center of the Earth, you would move faster and faster. Once you passed the center, you'd start to slow down because the center of the Earth's gravity would start pulling you back towards it. And just as gravity slows you to a stop, you'd arrive at the other side of the Earth. The entire trip would only take you 42 minutes. But you better be sure someone is there to grab your feet and pull you out. If not, gravity will start pulling you back towards the center, and you'll start ping-ponging back and forth with less and less speed until eventually, because of friction, you'd end up in the center of the Earth. That's the gravity of the situation. As Imagineers, one of the biggest challenges we face in designing our theme park attractions is figuring out the best way to work with, and sometimes against, gravity's constant 1G force. Come on, I'll show you how. Water, fall, gravity? Are you getting it? The Matterhorn bobsleds, Disneyland's first thrill ride and the world's first steel tube roller coaster. The Matterhorn is also a great place to show you gravity at work. Gravity's fun! This is Imagineer and Director of Concept Integration, Dave Durham. Dave, tell us how gravity plays such an important part of the Matterhorn experience.
Well, the Matterhorn is a smaller version of the famous mountain in Switzerland. When we designed the attraction, we wanted to simulate the high-speed, icy adventure of a toboggan going through the dips and turns of a toboggan ride. Underneath all this theming, at its heart, the Matterhorn is an amazing roller coaster. Gravity is actually a fundamental principle behind every roller coaster ride you ever ride. Think of it this way.
That's Dave's Imagineering notebook. We all carry them to jot down ideas so we don't forget them.
Let's say you had a crane, and you picked up a roller coaster by its back car and it was dangling. If you let go, gravity's going to pull that roller coaster straight down. When the vehicle falls, now picture putting some track underneath it. So as the vehicle touches the track, it's now falling on the track, going through dips and turns and twists and rises, corkscrews, loops. Gravity will actually pull it all the way down until it reaches the end of the ride.
And so you need some pretty serious height when designing a roller coaster.
Oh yeah. Most roller coasters start the ride by going up the top of a very tall hill. The Matterhorn does the same thing. We actually do it inside the ice tunnel. So this takes our guests up to the top of our first hill.
A lot of other roller coasters, like Space Mountain, have multiple lift hills to add energy back into the roller coaster car. But the Matterhorn only has one, right?
We actually replaced the additional lift hills with high-speed flywheels. This allows the vehicles to pass over the wheels. Therefore, we can boost energy to speed the car up or slow the car down.
That was awesome. Roller coasters also change the way we experience that 1G force that we're used to feeling, right?
Yes, that's what puts the thrill into the thrill ride. The steeper the angle, the closer you are to a vertical drop, the closer you are to getting that floaty, free fall type of feeling. Then as you pull out the hill on the opposite side, gravity wants to pull you back, which gives you that heavier than 1G feeling. When you mix those up, you get more thrill.
The Matterhorn has some pretty serious banks and turns. What do they have to do with gravity?
Well, what surprises most people is that the feeling you get from those turns actually has nothing to do with gravity. The feeling you get from those turns has more to do with Newton's first law.
That's an object in motion will stay in motion, and in a straight line.
When you suddenly change the direction of a roller coaster that wants to continue in a straight line, you suddenly get lateral forces or side G forces. That actually has to do with Newton's second law.
You accelerate when forces are not balanced.
Add to all of that the quick changes in direction, the G forces, the lateral forces. The Matterhorn is also the king of the blind turn, which means you can't really see what's coming up next, so you're constantly surprised.
And that's why the Matterhorn bobsleds continue to be one of the most popular attractions at Disneyland, and why gravity is so much fun when you're strapped into the seat of a roller coaster. We know that most roller coasters start out on a giant hill. Well, what happens when they don't? Yeah, science is fun! You get an attraction like Rockin' Roller Coaster at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Yes, it's a coaster of a different kind. And this is Imagineer and technical specialist Rick Turner. The first thing you notice on Rockin' Roller Coaster is the incredibly fast launch. Why is that necessary?
Well, that's one of the design elements that makes Rockin' Roller Coaster so special and unique. On a regular roller coaster, you have to be carried up to the top of a long lift hill in order to get that energy that you're going to need to carry you through the rest of the ride. On Rockin' Roller Coaster, we launch you to 55 miles an hour to achieve the same goal. You're rocketed straight into an inversion, and you're at the highest point of the ride while you're upside down. And from there, gravity takes over and carries you through the rest of the ride.
During the launch, you feel some pretty strong force, but that's not gravity, right?
No, it's not gravity, but it feels exactly the same. We compare it to gravity because as humans, we're used to feeling that 1G always pulling us down. But on a rock and roller coaster, the force is pushing you forward. So when we accelerate you to 55 miles an hour in under 3 seconds, you really feel the acceleration force pushing you back into your seat. Now, as humans, we naturally compare it to gravity because that's the force we're used to feeling all the time.
Ah, science that makes sense. Everyone who rides roller coasters always talks about G's. But what exactly are G's? G is a measurement of an object's acceleration.
Well, we measure the forces in terms of the force of gravity. So when you're on a ride and you're feeling 2 Gs, you feel like you weigh twice as much as you would normally feel. When you're experiencing 4 Gs, you feel like you're weighing 4 times as much.
Rick, it's safe to say that you're a pretty big roller coaster fan. Does it really matter where you sit in the car? I can't decide. I can't decide. I mean, does it change the ride experience that much?
Well, at Imagineering, we try to design the ride so that every seat gives a great experience. But there is something called the long train effect. When you have a long vehicle, the different parts of the train could be going through the same element at a different speed. Like on Rock and Roller Coaster, when you're accelerating forward and you hit that first curve up into the first inversion, the front of the train is going to hit that bottom of the curve faster than the back. Because as soon as the train starts going up the hill, gravity pulls down and starts to slow the train down. So by the time the back of the train gets there, it's going substantially slower. So if you want the most G's, sit in the front.
How about Expedition Everest at Disney's Animal Kingdom?
At Expedition Everest, I like to sit in the back because there's a big drop right in the middle of that ride, and the front of the train is already on its way down that hill, and the train is accelerating down the hill, and by the time you get to that drop in the back seat, you're going a lot faster than the front, so you get a lot more negative G's, and it's much more thrilling.
That's because gravity pulls everything down at an accelerating rate. Remember? Yep, the back is the best. And Space Mountain at Walt Disney World?
The middle. You wouldn't think so, but in row 3 on Space Mountain at Disney World, because it's a long car and you're actually sitting slightly behind the wheelbase, as the train goes over each hill, there's a teeter-totter effect. The back of the car actually goes up a little bit as you go down, and in the dark, it's really exciting to feel like you're going up and then suddenly go down. Surprise!
How about California Screamin' at Disney's California Adventure? Where would you suggest sitting there?
It's a split. I like the front and the back.
Wait. What?
In the front, you get the high G's coming into the curves at the end of the launch. In the back, you get pulled over the tops of the hills. In the front, you get the wind in your face and the great view. And in the back, you get to see the front of the train go through the loop ahead of you.
I guess it really depends on what you're looking for and what you want to feel from the forces of gravity. From traditional roller coasters that depend on gravity to move, to something that actually creates a completely artificial sense of gravity. Ready for blast-off. We're here at Mission Space at Epcot. This is Imagineer and mechanical engineer Joel Payne. Joel, Mission Space simulates a flight to Mars. That's so different from the normal feel of gravity that we're used to. Break that down for me, Houston.
We're all used to feeling 1 G of gravity standing here on the Earth. So we really need to mask that normal feel of gravity in order to give you a different experience like the 3 Gs an astronaut will experience on takeoff.
Intense G's pushing us back. Remember, 3 Gs would make you feel 3 times heavier than your normal body weight. This is gravity! At the heart of the ride system is a giant centrifuge of sorts. A centrifuge is a device that rotates around a fixed central point. How does that come into play?
What a centrifuge actually does is it prevents an object from traveling in a straight line.
I bet you knew that.
So if you imagine a bucket on a string with water in the bottom of it, if you swing that bucket around, the water stays pressed against the bucket.
Yeehaw!
It's not actually that the water is being pushed into the bucket, it's that the bucket is pushing on the water to give it an additional acceleration into the bottom of the bucket.
That's called centripetal force. Centripetal force is the force directed towards the center of rotation that keeps an object moving in a curved path. If you swing the bucket fast enough, your pull on the bucket, the centripetal force, will be greater than the pull of gravity, and the water will stay in the bucket. But if you swing too slowly, the pull of gravity will be greater, and the water will spill out.
Mission Space expanded on the concept of a centrifuge in order to give guests a feeling of artificial gravity via that same centripetal force that we just talked about.
In deep space, obviously you expect to feel no gravity. How do we simulate that weightless feel?
Well, weightlessness isn't really what people think it is, especially as it applies to an attraction. Because the truth is the human body is very, very good at sensing changes in acceleration. You feel this anytime you step on the brakes of a car and it pushes you forward, or you step on the gas and pushes you into your seat. So the weightlessness that people experience in mission space really has more to do in the change in centripetal force that the human body is picking up.
And by the time you land on Mars, you've experienced things like a liftoff, slingshot around the moon, an asteroid field, and a landing. All of that is done by changing the way we perceive that normal pull of gravity. We're safe. Made it. I told you science is fun. So, what did we learn about gravity today? Well, it's dependable. We've been feeling its pull our entire lives. Sure, we can mask it or change the way we feel it, like on roller coasters and on other rides that give us that feeling of thrill. But when it's all said and done, that old 1G, the constant force of gravity, it'll always be waiting for us. Starting to make sense? Huh? Huh? But there's one more attraction I want to show you today. It's back where we started. I feel sweaty. Am I sweaty? Because yes, the force of gravity even exists in the Twilight Zone. The Twilight Zone Tower of Terror features an intense 13-story plunge that's all about gravity. Or is it? This is Imagineer and ride control engineer Molly Kistler. Molly, tell us about this amazing attraction.
Sure. As you may know, the story that we Imagineers came up with for this attraction is that back in 1939, 5 people stepped into an elevator and were lost forever in the Twilight Zone. So when we were making the attraction, we knew it had to be about an elevator, but it had to be a pretty spectacular elevator that went beyond what a normal elevator feels like.
Right, because in a normal elevator, that's really all about minimizing sudden changes in that 1G force that we're normally used to feeling, right?
Right, but we actually wanted to maximize those changes. Our elevator is a ride vehicle, so we can do some pretty different things with it. So we have a cable system that actually pulls the elevator up with a tremendous force. Sort of similar to a regular elevator moving really fast. But we also have a cable on the bottom that pulls the vehicle down faster than gravity itself.
And so you get way more than that normal free fall feeling.
Definitely. In a normal free fall, you would fall with your seat because gravity would pull everything down at the same speed.
Got it?
In our case, we pull the seat down away from you faster than 1G or the normal pull of gravity. So your seat will pull away from you. You'll feel like you're floating out of your seat.
And so by adding to or subtracting from that normal 1G force that we're used to feeling, that's how we put that sort of tremendous thrill in thrill rides.
Definitely.
That's so cool. And though it scares me to death, in the name of science, I'm gonna give it a try.
I think you'll love it.
Molly? 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 Molly! Trust me, this is science to fall for! Ah! Whoa. Now I know why people like it so much. It's definitely more than a free fall. No, 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 no. Oh! Wow, there's still one up there. Now, as we've seen, gravity is the force that pulls all objects with mass toward each other. The greater an object's mass, the greater its gravitational pull. And here, on massive planet Earth, it's the Earth's gravitational pull that keeps us and everything around us from floating off into space. Well, gotta get back to work on my pizza dough tosser. I hope you'll remember that everything starts with an idea. Let's hear that one more time. It all starts with an idea. If you follow through with your ideas, science can be the means to turn them into reality. That makes sense. As we say at Imagineering, dream it, do it. Yep, gravity is always with us. You know what? That isn't bad. Edible hats.